quick note, I am not Mexican. This is my riff on Mexican green enchiladas. I used a recipe from the internet and I just kind of tweaked it and made it my own. Having said all that, I hope you enjoy it. I think it's really good. So you start by making a sauce and see the video description for a typed recipe with substitutions and suggestions. I've got a variety of peppers here, serranos, anaheims, poblanos, and jalapenos. And I'm going to roast all of these veggies that you see here before I make the sauce, including tomatillos. These, you peel the skins off and wash them really well because they're pretty sticky. They are not green tomatoes, contrary to popular belief. White onion and garlic. And all of these, as I said, I'm going to roast them first to turn them into a green sauce. And I'm going to use this casserole dish that is stained, not dirty. Trust me, it is stained. And then I also am going to roast 6 boneless, skinless chicken thighs. You can, of course, use leftover chicken or rotisserie chicken from the store, but I'm cooking it fresh myself, just adding a little salt. And I'm going to roast these in the oven along with the veggies at the same time to be more efficient. So I'm leaving all the veggies whole, and I'm just going to cover them with about a tablespoon of oil and get them coated. And I'm going to roast them at 400 along with the chicken for about a half hour. And while those veggies are roasting, I'm going to prep the corn. Now, of course, you could use frozen corn and save some time, but fresh corn, especially this time of year, is just so much tastier. So what I do is I like to quote unquote grill it. I don't have a grill. So what I do is I remove the outer layers of the shucks and I take out the little silk things and I microwave them first to cook them, and then I broil them after. So these are the roasted veggies, and as you can see, they've blistered and the skin is starting to peel off, which is exactly what we want, because I'm going to take the skin and the seeds and the stems off of the peppers. So I'm covering them with this cookie sheet so they will steam and be softer and easier to deskin. These are the cooked corns, fresh out of the microwave. I am just removing their husks and their silks, and I'm going to broil them in the broiler, as I said. So this is a nice little trick if anything is requiring grilling, but you don't have a grill because you live in an apartment and they don't let you have a grill. What you can do is use your broiler. So put your oven to broil and then move your rack to as close to the heating element as it can get and put your things directly under the heating element. This is really, really hot, so be super, super careful. And it'll cook really quickly. So I leave them about 3 minutes, 4 minutes on one side, and as you can see, they're starting to char. Kitchen tongs are extremely valuable for this sort of thing. An oven glove would be nice too. So I cook them about 3 to 4 minutes per side. And if you leave the oven door open a little bit, it'll keep the heat element from turning off. And look how beautiful that is. And it's definitely worth the effort. It adds so much more flavor to your corn. And there they are. I let them cool before I deal with them. And now, speaking of dealing with things, the sauce. So this is probably the most time-consuming and annoying part of the process, at least for me, taking off the skin. So, you may find that it comes off pretty easily. You may find parts of it don't come off very easily. It's okay if you don't get all the skin off. Just try to get off as much skin as you can. If you leave all the skin on, it will make your sauce a little less smooth and a little more bitter. So try to get off as much of that skin as you can. And then, you can technically leave the seeds in. And in the hot peppers, I like to leave my seeds in for the heat. But on the Anaheim chilies and the poblanos, remove the seeds. And of course, remove the stems. You don't want that in your sauce. And now I add the residual juices, the oil from the casserole dish, and all the roasted veggies just directly into a medium-sized pot on medium heat. You don't have to worry about anything being uniform in size, and you just add a chopped white onion, 4 minced garlic cloves, some salt, and a tablespoon of cumin, a teaspoon of coriander, and you just let them sweat a little bit for about, 5 minutes or so until the onion softens, and then I add 2 cups of not yogurt, that's homemade chicken broth. If you're vegetarian, of course, just use vegetable broth. And I let that simmer for 15 minutes. While that is simmering, that's a tablespoon of chicken fat. Again, if you're vegetarian, just use oil. And that is the skillet in which I roasted the chicken, so I don't have to clean it twice. That is a giant, the equivalent of a giant chopped onion. I had half of a red onion and half of a yellow onion left over in my fridge with no plans, so I figured I'd just use those onions. Add a little salt, and you want to wilt them. You don't really want to brown them. And there were some brown bits of chicken left over at the bottom of the pan that I didn't want scorching, so I covered it to let the steam from the onions help lift those brown bits off the bottom of the skillet, which is delicious. It's fond. You don't want to throw that stuff away. You want to eat it because it's flavor. So I'm just letting that sweat some more and letting the onions turn translucent. Meanwhile, my sauce is just about done. I'm adding a big old handful of cilantro in at the end, and I turned off the heat at this point, so it's just residual heat cooking it through for 1 minute. You don't really want to cook the cilantro too much. And now the onions are sufficiently wilted, and so I'm going to add 4 more cloves of minced garlic and the shredded meat of the chicken thighs. So if you're vegetarian, I think zucchini would be a pretty good substitute. Personally, but there are other ideas in the video description if you are interested in the vegetarian version of this dish. And now I'm just adding a teaspoon of chili powder, a teaspoon of coriander, and a teaspoon of cumin. Pretty simple spices in this dish. I really like to let the flavors of the corn and the peppers and stuff shine through. And at this point, you don't really need to cook anything. You just need to sort of heat it through and let the spices get some contact with the oil so that they can wake up a bit. And so while the spices are waking up, I'm just taking the kernels off of these corns, and then I'm adding 3/4 of the kernels into this mixture. So there's half a cob of kernels left over that I'm reserving. I'm going to put that on top of the enchiladas. Now, if you have one of these stick blenders, immersion blenders like I do, use that to puree your sauce. If you don't have this kind of blender, that's fine. You can use a normal blender. It's just you have to clean a big blender and a pot if you do that. So if you have a stick blender, it's really nice to use. So now we're just about ready to assemble. We've got sauce, we've got filling, we've got the corn that I reserved for the top, and this is cotija cheese. If you're unfamiliar, it's sort of like a cross between feta and parm. It's really delicious. It's becoming one of my favorite cheeses. And this is just some grated Monterey Jack. Same casserole dish I used for the peppers. I didn't even clean it because, those ingredients are just going in there. Store-bought tortillas. I don't bother making homemade tortillas when I do enchiladas. It's already a lot of work. And now, just like when you make a lasagna, you got to prep the bottom of the casserole dish with the sauce. I always have more than enough sauce than I need for this recipe, so don't worry about running out. And now we start with a burrito-sized tortilla. I don't get the jumbo burrito size, just regular burrito size. I do filling, I do cotija, and a little sauce, and then you fold over the sides. And this is where you don't necessarily copy my exact technique, because I am not very good at this part. I kind of mess up and it slops out all over the place. You get better at it the more you do it. Usually by the time I roll my 8th one, I'm better. You put the whole thing seam side down in your casserole dish. And it's okay if it's kind of sloppy, because it's all going to get covered with sauce anyway. And I made 8, but then I had filling left over. And this actually is a very common occurrence when you're making enchiladas. So if you have leftover filling, don't fret. Just get another mini ramekin and make another one and put it in its own little mini ramekin, and it works just fine. Maybe I'll roll this one better, or maybe I won't, because I will let it ooze out the bottoms again. I saved it in the end. Anyway, seam side down, and then you want to cover these enchiladas in the sauce. And I like to leave parts of the tortillas exposed, because I like how the end bits of the tortillas get crispy in the oven. And then cheese and corn on top as well. So I do shredded jack, a little cotija, and then the reserved corn, so that everybody knows what's inside of these enchiladas. And then in a 400-degree oven for, I believe, 25 minutes. Look at the recipe in the video description. And look at its bubbly, beautiful goodness. Oh, I didn't say behold. Well, behold, it's beautiful, bubbly goodness. Seriously, you want to dive into these right away, but don't. You'll burn your mouth. There's the little baby one. And yeah, these are really delicious. I invented them sort of a few weeks ago, and I think they're going to become a late summer, early fall tradition. And I hope you make them too. Bye!